Ian Murphy. I'm the CTO of Lmntrix. For those of you who have seen my videos on LinkedIn, I apologize. I apologize profusely. I'm sorry about that. I still have nightmares myself. So I'm here to talk to you about some strategies for kind of advanced detection and response. This can be interactive. It can be just me talking at you. Feel free to heckle if you want. You can that's okay. My night job is a stand-up comedian, so if you want to heckle, I do this for a profession. Okay? I'm happy to make you cry. There's no problem with that. So, a little bit about Lmntrix. I should always ask, does anybody know how to pronounce it? Because I get people coming up to us saying, what's the name of your company? Is it Lmntrix? It's Lmntrix. So as you say it, is how you pronounce it. We are a managed XDR provider. So we provide services around XDR. So we'll take in telemetry from many different modules. I'll go through that a bit later towards the end of the presentation. But essentially, we've been going about 6 or 7 years now. We're just coming over to the UK, over 400 countries. What's this timer of minus 46 on the front? It's gone weird. There we go. Oh, there we go. We just started at 30 minutes. So I'll probably run over now, by the way. We founded in Australia, headquartered in America now. We're just coming over to the UK, but we've been in and around managed services since about 99. So about 2012, our founder sold out to Data. I think we've got some NTT data people in today, have we? We've got some. So we sold out to Data. And then when the golden handcuffs came off, we came back to the MDR space, so managed detection response, which is now managed XDR, extended, extravagant, whatever the X stands for, X factor. I'm never too sure. Something we're kind of proud of because, and I know this is a bit self-promotion, but even though we're still a smallish company, we're still in the startup phase. We've been recognised by Gartner and IDC as well. By the way, I always say this about Gartner. I probably shouldn't because it's being recorded, right? I always say this about Gartner. If you're buying stuff off Gartner, remember you're buying stuff off something called a magic quadrant. It's magic, remember, at the end of the day. So if you are buying that type of stuff, don't expect it to do magic. And this is all about simplicity. This chat is all about, this strategy is all about doing the simple things well. One of the things I think that's interesting about the company is that it's all privately funded. So there's no external VC funding in the company. We believe in what we do. We stick our money where our mouth is. So we're putting our own money back into the, we're putting our CEO's money back into the company. I may look stupid, but yeah. So first off, let's set the scene of kind of where we are. If this would go a little bit quicker, and again. There we go. So I like to talk about the maturity scale from a cybersecurity view. When cybersecurity's been around for ages, right? Coming on and going off. Are we okay? Are we good? Are we good with the microphone? We're having another microphone being brought up. Let's give a round of applause to my beautiful assistant, Debbie McGee. Is that better? Oh, hang on. I've scared myself then. I like to talk about the sliding scale of cybersecurity maturity. Most people are still on that left-hand side of the scale. We need to bring people up to a more offensive approach. That doesn't mean offensive in offending people, by the way. That means offensive in being more adversarial in our approach when it comes to going after the attackers on your network. What we find when we work with customers is that a lot of people are in the passive defense side of things. If you're collecting logs, if you're looking for that needle in a haystack, this is bad news for you. That's passive defense, right? You're not being active at all. You're waiting for something to happen and then react to that thing that happens. Where we need to bring people, and what we absolutely do from an active defense right through to an offensive approach, is we help them become adversarial on their network. And we've found that this kind of boils down to 5 real categories of where we're able to help people. Now, for the strategies that I'll offer to you, it doesn't mean that if you do these strategies, you're going to be secure. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to develop your own MXDR service. It just means that it's a slightly different way of thinking. It's a slightly different way of approaching it, and it's a thing that we've found over the 20 or so years, from the MSSP bit to the MXDR bit, that has absolutely worked for us. Some numbers. We all love a number. I mean, Sarah's presentation earlier on had loads of numbers, 660 million or stuff like that. Attacks, was it 660 million? I'm assuming 98% of that was porn. I'm just assuming 98% of that was porn. It's what the internet was developed for, let's be honest, right? Let's be honest. Nobody goes, oh, where's the internet? I'd like a research paper on psychology. Nobody does that. Nobody opens their browser and goes straight into that, right? What this graph, the whole purpose of this graph is to tell you that the earlier you get to this, the less cost it's going to be, and the more risk reduction you're going to get, right? If you're leaving this later into the life cycle of an attack, it's going to cost you more, the risk is going to be higher, and you're probably going to have a large amount of downtime as well. By the way, I see a few of you taking photos, which is allowed. Don't take photos. I see a few of you taking photos. That's allowed. If you want the presentation, come and see us afterwards. We can sort you out with the presentation, right? It's no problem. You can have it. You just have to give us your mother's maiden name. Absolutely. Absolutely. Could you imagine that, coming up to a Scouser and giving them my bank details? After you probably heard my accent and you went, where's, just patting yourselves down, where is it? Relax yourselves, you're good. I've been wandering around for hours, there's nothing worth stealing. Right, strategy. So let's get into the strategies, right? The main thing here that we try and bring to customers is the assume breach mentality. Right, we all know the assume breach mentality. If you haven't been breached, you're going to be breached. And if you don't think you've been breached, you probably have been breached, right? So it's that unhealthy paranoia that we all suffer from in cyber, right? It's hands up who consider themselves in security. Few. Okay, hands up who consider themselves in cyber. You put your hand up for twice of them there, didn't you? What are you, cyber or security? Both, good man. Cyber security, in fact. I mean, we should use that as a name, shouldn't we? One word. It's always one word. Who asked that question? Yeah, it's always one word. And don't capitalize it either. Yeah. Again, Scouts are giving you grammar lessons. There you go. Grammar and spelling. We did the 3 R's at school, reading, writing, and robbing. I should stop doing comedy, to be quite honest, and get on with the strategy, shouldn't I? I should just keep going with the comedy. Now, I don't want to see people just walk out offended. People who come to comedy night and then walk out offended. It's like weird people. Anyway, so strategy number 1. We need to work on that. All. Just take a note. It's defense with a C. We give them the language and they ruin it, to be quite honest. So part of what we do and what makes us successful is we get the security controls that customers have to do the things that security controls should be doing. And that for us means blocking as much noise on the boundary, right? So we can then go on a network and hunt and look for adversaries on that network by us reducing that noise. If we can hunt, if we can look on a quieter network, it makes our job easier, right? It reduces false positives. It terminates alert fatigue. We all know what alert fatigue is, right? Yeah. For those of you who don't, and it's okay if you don't. For those of you who don't, it is the Chicken Little syndrome. You tell somebody they're under attack often enough, they're going to switch off to it, right? They're just going to become anaesthetised to it, and they're going to think, oh, they're going on about it again. We've probably all worked with MSSPs throughout our careers where they've just sent you another false positive and you just put it in the delete or the spam folder. So you take, and that's what happens in a lot of attacks, to be quite honest, and that's what a lot of attackers bank on, is the fact that you're not going to do anything with the information you're being given, which is weird, right? Because you spend a lot of money on that service, but you're then not doing anything because it means nothing to you. There's no context to it. So when we talk to customers, we're looking for them to have a minimum of firewalls, email and web, and for that to work, right? To build an outer shell. We term it the layers of the onion. We've all heard this in security before, right? Layers of the onion. You know why they call it layers of the onion, don't you? Because when you peel another layer off to buy more security technology, it makes you cry because of the cost of it. That's why. Second strategy. So when we talk about post-breach, this is the assumed breach mentality, right? It's not, you need this post-breach. We're assuming that you've already been breached, right? So this is a strategy for detecting malware. And the real thing to take away from this slide is it's a multi-vector approach. It's not just the endpoint, and it's not just having AV, right? It's being able to look across your network and across different areas of your network of where threat attack vectors are coming into your network or propagating across your network to be able to detect that. So you don't just need AV signatures. You need more than AV signatures. Most of you will have or have heard of EDR or EDR technology. Most people buy EDR technology and only ever use the next-gen AV capabilities of it because it's a bit too complex for them to use. It's a bit too complex for them to configure internally. And that's part of our problem in security. We don't give enough of that information about what people need to do. We try and sell them on the idea that you buy this, you're cured. But it's not the case. It takes hard work. Again, 5 strategies. If you implement them, you'll get better. But you'll get better if you implement them over time, right? It's a craft. It's like anything. It's like trying to do stand-up comedy for the first time. You're going to be really shit at it. You are going to be really shit at it. Let me tell you that from experience. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. The more you can interact with crowds. It's the same with this stuff. The more you do security, the better you're going to get at it. If you're doing it to tick a box in compliance, remember, compliance doesn't equal security. It never has and it never will do. If you're filling in a spreadsheet, you're coming at it from the wrong angle. Right? You were definitely coming at it from the wrong angle. Next strategy. You need some kind of way of detecting human adversaries on a network, right? This is how red teams regularly embarrass customers when they do an engagement with them, because they can get on a network and they can move around and use living off the land techniques. Have we heard living off the land before? Yeah, so living off the land is the ability where you will be on a network, you will land, and you'll be able to use the tools that are already on that network to move from machine to machine and hopefully escalate your privileges and be able to do something and show the customer what they're not seeing. Okay? We understand that? Yeah? So what we do is we use deceptions for this. So one second. Anybody use deceptions here on their network? Anybody want to admit to it? Lovely, good stuff. How long have you been using it? Not long. Are you seeing anything from it at the moment? Hasn't been in long enough. Which is, I mean, thank you for being so honest. The weird thing about it is deceptions, honeypots, honeynets, that type of stuff have been around for about 20 odd years. You know, they've been around from the late 90s onwards, to be quite honest. And yeah, as a technology, they're not used internally on networks because very complex to implement, yeah? Very complex to implement and very complex to get right internally. What you've got to be able to do when you're using deceptions is make it like an overlay of your network. I mean, there's loads of vendors out there that do it as well, but we build it into our service. You've got to make it seem as if what people are seeing, what people are doing on the network is real. So it needs not to stand out. If you've got one server that's a deception server, with all breadcrumbs leading to that IP address, attackers are going to know that. Attackers are going to know that you're leading them somewhere, you're taking them down the garden path. So you need to think about this, you need to put some thought into it. It's great for lateral movement. It's also great to spot inside the threats as well. I'll give you a book recommendation. Anybody read The Cuckoo's Egg? Yeah, magic. If you're in security and you haven't read The Cuckoo's Egg, you need to shake your head, to be quite honest. It is, for me, the Bible of security. You need to read that to understand the mentality that we need in security. The story, Clifford Stoll, a university admin guy back in the mid-80s, sees a discrepancy on a network, because you had to pay for time on the network then. He traces that back to, I'm not giving anything away in the plot, he traces that back to a hacker in old East Germany. Get the book, read it, it's really useful. It's an interesting story more than anything else, right? So it's from an insider threat point of view, this type of stuff is invaluable, because if you're sticking breadcrumbs out there, if you're sticking tidbits of information, if you're putting, say, documents out there that says, here's the executive remuneration, and somebody in your internal network is having a bit of a nose about, you're finding that insider threat before they can do. It might just be curiosity, but you're finding their insider threat. Also as well, make sure your phones are off. Just Normally that would be a 4-letter tirade against you, but I've stopped myself this time. You're fine. We need, so strategy number 4, we need a way of looking at this evidence, preserving it, doing some incident response on it. And for us, we use a lot of metadata on the network. We do a lot of packet capture. We do a lot of telemetry from EDR. This is where logs are useful, right? This is where logs are useful. If you can do this stuff and use retrospection, do we know what retrospection is? That is looking back thinking, I wish I didn't have that many drinks last night. That is essentially what retrospection is. You're able to look back over your logs. You're able to see what's happened. When an attack happens, you're able to go back like an event recorder, like if we're old enough to remember, like a DVR, digital video recorder. We're able to go back and replay what's happened. So that's where logs are useful. You can go back, you can see how they got in, you can see how they moved around, you can see what they did. You've got the evidence there. You can do something about it in the future then. You've got some way of responding to those incidents should they happen again. Another good way of doing this, we've all heard of the MITRE ATT&CK framework, right? They map all those incidents out that are well known in the use, that are well known by the different attacker groups that Sarah mentioned earlier on, the nation states, they're well known by then. They map that out onto the MITRE ATT&CK framework. That's like a record of all of this stuff. You can bring all of that in and you can learn from what you've done wrong in the past, okay? God knows I need to learn from that stuff. Also as well, underground intel, threat and intel. Threat intel has been about again for years. I still don't think a lot of people really know how to do it. It's a commoditized thing now. It's sold, but you need to understand what you're bringing in, what's applicable to your industry, what people are doing on the network and on the dark web and places like that, so you can bring that information in to do something about. Again, all strategies, all useful strategies for you. Didn't work? Yes, it did. And then for when the initial strategies don't work, you need the ability to threat hunt on your network. Who does threat hunting at the moment? Nobody? Or nobody admitting to it in case I pick on you? I'm not going to pick on you. I'm a nice person, really. Nobody does threat hunting? No? Nobody admitting to it? No? Okay. So for when those strategies fail, you need the backstop to understand what people may or may not be doing on your network. This is where threat hunting comes in. So not only external threat hunting information, the indicators of compromise, but also the internal stuff as well, the indicators of attack, to understand what's going on your network, what the prevalence of certain things is. If you're, for argument's sake, you start up your machines on a corporate and it opens Teams, it opens a bunch of Skype, whatever, opens a bunch of different applications. If it's opening an application you've never seen, that's doing a command and control back somewhere that you've you've never authorized. You need to be able to spot that. And they're the little things on the network that you're very rarely able to notice. That's where threat hunting comes in. That's where full packet capture is useful, so you can start replaying that type of stuff. That's where intelligent people are useful as well. To be quite as more intelligent than I am, to be quite, and you probably guessed I'm not that intelligent, right? So that's where you need experts in this area. So it's okay, and this whole security realm we're in, it's okay buying the products or buying the services, but if you haven't got the people to do anything with it, it's kind of pretty useless, right? You're throwing your money away. But spend that money on patching stuff. Spend that money on your technical debt. Don't spend it on the next new shiny thing. But if you've got the shiny things and you want to get the best out of them, these are the strategies that you start using, right? Or at least planning it on your roadmap of where you're coming from and where you're going to. So you need to know how mature you are security-wise to how mature you want to be, and then you can start mapping this stuff out. Does that make sense? Yeah? See a few nods, see a few people thinking, what are they having for lunch? Yeah? No? Okay. Here's just a bit of an attack path. And Sarah said it earlier on, 99% of attacks are still coming in via the external link, right? You know, we get these news stories of nation states and this, that, and the other. Most of them are still using the easy way in. Most of them are still using, let's send a link. Has anybody ever had their social media, their Facebook, stolen or anything like that? Yeah. And you can never get it back, right? You can never get it back. Really? Can I get your details afterwards? There's a bunch of my comedian friends who'd like to speak to you. No, they don't. No, they don't. Even when you can prove to them that, you know, you've fallen for that attack. Yeah. Yeah. And they go in, they're really quick, they change all your passwords, and you're locked out, aren't you? You're locked out. And now, for some people, especially some of my comedian friends, that's years of data just lost in an instant. It still comes in, and it can happen to anybody. I think anybody who wants to purport that they will solve the human issue just underestimates our ability for stupidity, to be quite honest, right? And that's not me being detrimental to the rest of the human species. We are idiots. Accept it. We will make mistakes. I got done recently, and this wasn't online. This was in real life. I got done out of 1,500 quid. But a guy come round to do some garden stuff and convinced me, and there was external pressures and blah, 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 all that type of stuff. 1,500 quid gone. It can happen to anyone at any time. If we think we're immune, then we're kidding ourselves on, right? It's proven that actually the more intelligent you think you are or you perceive you are, the more open you are to getting stung by this, because you think it'll never happen to me. It's a psychological thing. It'll never happen to me. I'm better than average. I think it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect from a psychological point of view. We all think we're better than average drivers, don't we? That's the Dunning-Kruger effect. My wife thinks she's a better driver than me. I wasn't the one who curbed the tires, though, was I? I hope that's not going out on YouTube, because I'm sleeping in the spare room tonight if it is. But yes, from an attack point of view, they're still getting in via email, they're still getting in via phishing, and then they're still moving throughout that network. So from a kind of kill chain point of view, when you're looking at it, and this will identify the different types of modules we offer, but the different types of technologies you can implement at the different stages of this life cycle attack. So reconnaissance and identity, NDR, Intel, packet EDR, packet to threat hunting. So again, if you come to us for the slides, you'll be able to take this away and think, okay, if I need to do that and that's the area on my network, that's a problem for me, I know I need to look at those type of technologies or potentially those type of services. From the exfiltration of data, right through to the exfiltration of data, whether that's on the cloud or whether that's deep and dark web recon. Do we do dark web reconnaissance? Do we use that? We've got one hand. The rest of you are like, what's the dark web? Yeah, it's where you can buy drugs and guns. Apparently, I don't know. Somebody once told me you could buy that there. But it's where you can see what your data. It's important to be able to see what people are doing with your data, or people in your industry, what they're going to do with the data. It's important to have that view as well. When you bring all of that together, that's the entirety of the telemetry that we have. If we look at it across a network architecture, a real simple network architecture here, again, you'll see the power of our MXDR, 24/7 MXDR. All of that stuff comes in to our platform. We're able then to do a lot of the containment, a lot of the automation. You need, unfortunately, in these days, I hate saying AI. I was having a chat to somebody previously about AI. Do people use AI in their network? Yep, good. Some of you do. It's just really complex math, right? Don't think of it as some kind of Terminator type nonsense. It is really complex math. That's all it is on your network. If you use it, you can get a high degree of automation. If you get a high degree of automation, you can increase your maturity because you're then only dealing with the stuff that falls outside of that, right? The stuff that falls outside of it is the stuff you need to take notice of, and that stuff is what you need to do something about, right? So all of those 5 strategies, if you bring all that together, you build in high automation with it, and then you're able to look at the stuff that comes out, the extremities of it that comes out of it from a human being point of view, and an informed human being as well. Not just some kid who's come out of university and they are now the new security analyst because they're keen. We all like keenness. Don't worry in security, we can beat that out of you really quickly. Nearly time. So, this is our platform. By the way, you'll have seen it on the TV when you come into the main room. You can't miss it because it's the biggest TV in the room, right? It's not my TV. I didn't bring it with me, but it's the biggest TV in the room. It's a bit Minority Report, but the real idea here is to show you from the initial screen the value of having all of this telemetry data and being able to distill that down to a bunch of incidents. So you've got the threats, which are incidents coming in on the left-hand side as you're looking at, and then you've got the actual incidents that have been that have gone through the automation, that have passed by a human being, that have been then sent out to the customer for stuff to do for them to do something with. Down the right-hand side, you have all the events coming in, all the live events coming in, and down the left-hand side, you have all the sensors that we look after for the customers. We can do a proper full live demo if you want to come by our stand afterwards, after lunch. We're right by the coffee machine. Get yourself a coffee because you'll need it to stay awake, and then you can pop by the stand and we can talk you through that. We're nearly on time, which is unusual for me because I normally go over time. Are there any questions? I'll take questions. General knowledge stuff, I don't mind. Any interesting facts? You got an interesting fact, sir? No? Okay. You got an interesting fact, Colonel? Okay, good stuff. Top secret stuff. Top secret stuff. Security classification. You need SC clearance for it. You've got some, I know you've got an interesting fact for me, my man. I was actually looking at him, but thank you for that anyway. Have I got a tear in my eye? Is that what, have I missed that? You thought I was looking at you. I was looking at Musa, my man behind you. Have you got you've got an interesting fact. Yep. Yep. It's that trade. Actually, I like your thinking. Should we all just sack this off and go to the pub? We could do that, right? Just, we're done. We're done anyway. Let's just go and get drunk. I like it. I like where your minds are. No, but you're right. It's that dichotomy of it, privacy versus security. You know, you don't want people prying into it too much, but yeah, you still need to, you know, that's why we have laws. That's, you know, security has never changed since we entered out of Africa, of the savannas, and colonized the rest of the world, right? Anthropologically, there have always been wrong-uns in our society, right? There's always been people who want to steal your nuts and berries, unfortunately. It's no different in the cyber world. It is no different. It just happens in a different theatre. So when you have that background, maybe this is why I'm in cybersecurity as a scout. I can see the angles. But when you have that background and that paranoia, it enables you to look at it from that, you know. My wife hates it. My wife hates it when I look at the risk of doing stuff. She says to me, "Why are you always negative about it?" I'm like, well, that's what security does to you. So if there's any younger people in here with wanting a career in security, run for the hills. Don't do it. It makes you terrible people at the end of it. No, it doesn't make you terrible people. It's quite profitable as well. No? Anybody want to disagree with that? Again, gone into comedy. I'm sorry about that. We are at the back of the room. We are with the biggest telly. I'm eating into your lunchtime. If you want to come and see us, come and visit us. If you want a copy of the slides, come and see us on the slides. My name's been Ian Murphy. Thank you. Goodbye.